So, without further ado, we are excited. And tonight we welcome comedian, insecure actress and creator, and smart, funny, and Black host. Let's give a warm welcome to Miss Amanda Seals.
Hi.
Hello.
Hey guys. What's going on?
Yes. So there are my dogs, and welcome to the fun webinar live. I told you.
What? My dog just got up like, wait, that's not me.
See what happens? Yeah, so welcome. We're so excited to have you with us tonight. And we have a full list and load of questions, but through it all, we just want to chat and hang with you. So we're really excited to have you offer just your insight on so many facts and knowledge, and then just also, reach out and answer some questions from our students. So thank you again for spending your time with us, and we're ready to get started. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, let's do this. Okay. So one of the many reasons we were so excited about bringing you to campus is because, in all honesty, we need to laugh. Okay. So we're not trying to use you or anything, but we know what you can bring. So we're excited about that. But with the racial and social and political issues that have been going on in the past year, it feels really good to have someone, take us in a different space, even if it's learning in a different perspective. So we thank you for that. So the first question comes from Bonnie Holt, one of our graduate students, who says, when did you realize you were funny?
Well, because there's like funny with your friends, and then there's funny getting money, being funny. And that's two very different things. So I always knew I was funny with my friends because my mom and my family are very funny people. And so once I was when I was younger and I could keep up with them, I knew I was cooking. And, I would just do things. I distinctly remember coming up with this Michael Jackson singing the Star Spangled Banner skit that I would do when I was 5. My mom would be like, do the Michael Jackson Star Spangled Banner, how parents do. And I was just telling my boyfriend the other day, I would just be in the back seat and be like, and now cello concerto number 62. Yeah. And I would just, he was like, how were they not dying laughing? I'm like, yo, I have to ask my mom, because I think at a certain point, she just came to expect that I was just going to randomly be doing animal operas, whatever. But being funny for a career, that came because I was in hip hop and I was doing radio and stuff like that. And then this chick that I barely knew, I think I met her at a dinner party. She was like, hey, VH1 is looking for a smart, funny Black girl. And I suggested you. And I was like, I didn't know that you thought of me as I didn't know that was a thing I was thought of. And she was like, yeah, you were so funny at the dinner. And so, I told them to check you out. And so I went in for this audition for Best Week Ever, and there was all these comedians there, but I ended up booking it. And so I would be in the makeup room with, these comedians like John Mulaney and Nick Kroll and Rich Nice. And I'd be able to keep up.
Yes. So, there you go. So it sounds like probably for a while, your parents just start kind of tuning you out, huh?
My mother. My father wasn't around enough to tune me out. He should have tuned me more in, because he would probably be better off. But my mother, definitely at a certain point, I feel I'm sure even my dude, there's stuff I be doing on Instagram that I think anybody else would be like, what is she doing over there? And he's just making eggs, and I'm over here doing a full performance with a goatee that I drew on my face with a eyeshadow pencil. So I think
we love it. And then some of these questions were kind of answered. So Diana Munoz Ortiz asked, when did you know you wanted to become a comedian? But you just shared with us.
No, that's different.
Oh, tell us more.
Difference, Bre.
Okay.
Because I was in the music business. I was entrenched in the music business. I was a radio host. Then I was writing for The Source and Double XL.
Yes.
I was an artist, so I was touring. I had my own music. I was in videos. Like, it was all about the music business. And then I reached a point in around 2010, 2011, where I just started to see the hip hop genre shift in a way that just didn't really connect with me anymore. Like, the style of music started becoming way more trap. And I don't know, I just wasn't, and even though like I grew up in the South and I love trap, like when it comes to hip hop, I'm a purist in many ways. Ways. And so there was just a disconnect that started to happen. And I think part of it too was also that I was maturing into a different space where I didn't feel like my voice was going to carry in that world anymore. And what happened with comedy was that the only thing I've ever loved as much as hip hop is comedy. I mean, I would tape SNL on VHS tapes and Seinfeld, and I would carry around Seinfeld's book and Chris Rock's book. Like, people were reading like little mini versions of the Old Testament, and I'd be reading like, oh, look what Chris Rock said about crack. You know what I'm saying? Like, and you know, I'd be like memorizing their bits, and I was always like trying to sneak to watch like stand-up specials like Raw and, you know, Def Comedy Jam when I was younger. So comedy was always like this real, it was more than just like, oh, they're making people laugh. It was a craft and an art form for me. So I took it very seriously. And that's why like, I never imagined I could even be a stand-up comic. And then basically the short version of this, and it's fully explained in my book, Small Doses, Potent Truths for Everyday Use, which is available now and being released on paperback April 13th.
Yes.
Okay. When I realized it was time to get out of music, I had all these things I could do. I could host, I could write, I could sing and like, you know, perform theatrically. I could act, and I could make people laugh. And it was like, all these things felt very disparate. And people were trying to tell me like, you know, you need to come up with something to call yourself, like a humorist, or, you know, and like, you need a label because people need to be able to call you something. And ultimately I ended up just kind of like centering on who are the people's careers that mimic what I want for myself.
Yes.
It landed at Chris Rock, Chelsea Handler, and Ellen DeGeneres, who are all very, very different. Very, very different. But they all have something in common. They've all built multimedia empires based on their point of view. So they have live performance, they have TV and film, they have books, they have hosting, all based on just their point of view. And the one thing when I looked at everything that they did, the one thing I didn't do was stand up. They all had stand up in common, and I didn't do stand up. And what I gleaned from that was, you know what? Being a stand-up legitimizes you as a comedian in a way where all these things that you do that look like they don't connect actually connect. And so it became this umbrella under which all of these things that I do could exist in harmony versus in discord. And so I kind of just put that out into the universe. And then maybe about like 9 months to a year later, like I got a call, like someone random was just like, hey, we're doing a stand-up show. We want you on it. And I was like, I don't do stand-up. And they're like, we want you to headline. I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. I can't headline because I've never done this before, but I'll come. And I mean, the people on the show are people like Sashir Zameda, who's on SNL, and like Naomi Kerrigan, who's one of the head writers of Search Party, and Marina Franklin, who's an amazing writer and stand-up comedian. So it was like my first show was with all these sisters who were a beast. Okay.
Oh my goodness.
So it is different because deciding to be a comedian was not something I took lightly. And to this day, I am in constant amazement that I'm a stand-up.
We are amazed.
I'm like, you're a stand-up comedian. Look at that.
Yes. Yes. Thank you so much for that. We're going to keep asking more questions. I want to keep talking to you more, but I have questions to ask. So let me stay. I need to be good. It's not about me right now. Okay. So education, for those who don't have access to education, is something you've talked about a lot. And I know you have a master's degree in African American Studies from Columbia. Woo-hoo. And so what advice would you give college students today? Like, what would you tell them?
I mean, I would tell them the same advice that I've always given college students. And by the way, I've been speaking at colleges since I was in college. Because when I was in school, I ended up doing Deaf Poetry Jam. And when people did Deaf Poetry Jam, they would send you out to schools to perform poetry. Right. So when I was in school, I ended up creating my own major. And I did that because I actually ended up having to I was asked to leave the acting conservatory at SUNY Purchase for a year. And it was some bullshit. That's a whole other story. But I was going to quit school. And then I had a professor who was like, no, you can't quit school. You're too smart. We got to figure this out. And I was like, I was trying to figure out, because I'm trying to spend this money to just be sitting up here doing some major that I don't want, because all of my bosses at the Gap had graduated with a major that they did not want. Okay. We had a poli-sci in there, a psych in there. We had a children's behavioral studies in there, and all of them. It wasn't that they couldn't get jobs in their field. They were just like, I just didn't really have a passion for it. And I was like, I'll be damned if I'm spending all this money going to be in debt for the next 20 years to not do something I love. And all I cared about at that point was learning more about my Black culture, because I learned, once you get to college, I guess I look at it like, I'll make this make sense. Just walk with me. But
I'm ready.
In grade school and high school, you learn Black history, but history is really just like facts. And even that is a little sketchy in the grade school curriculum, right? Mm-hmm. But when you get to college and you have like the right professors, you don't just learn history, you learn reality. And that involves feelings and nuance and context that history often leaves out. So that's where the arts comes in, because, they say that historians record the facts, poets record the feelings. So that's when you start to learn far more about the actual time that certain things that's like the Harlem Renaissance is from this time to this time. And then the Reconstruction from this time to this time. But then you don't learn about what were people feeling? What were people going through? What was the actual energy in the air? And so that's what I ended up learning in school when I changed my major and created a major called Black Studies with a concentration in the visual and performing arts.
Yes. Yes.
So to this
Is it still there? Do they still have that major?
They finally have a Black Studies major. They didn't have one at that time. So I like to think that I was a maverick in bringing
I love it. We're actually starting ethnic studies here.
Huh. The reason I told that story is because so many of us go to school and feel like we cannot chart our own course. We feel like we can't curate our educational experience.
Yes.
And ultimately, the way that you do that is you need to learn your school's rules. So many students rely on your advisors to tell you the who's and the what's and the how's of getting where you want to with your education. And I can confirm for you 100%, the only way I was able to not only graduate with my own major, but graduate on time was because I made it my business to learn what is needed to get out of here. And being able to know that and then build into that, what do I want to get from here? And so learning that framework, I could plug in what I needed. And I just think so many of us feel like we are just kind of limited to what has been decided for us with our college education. And you guys more than ever are at a time where you have so many different classes that we had and so many different options.
Yeah.
And it's just I get what I'm saying is reach outside of the obvious. Mm-hmm. You can make this your time.
That's such great advice. Yes. That's
just true. Advisors have how many students they got to care about? You got one. Right. You got one. You should be able to have a conversation with your advisor versus just receiving guidance. You should be able to say okay, I hear what you're saying. but if I do this, can I do this? Let me tell y'all a quick story. When I created my own major, I had to get signed off by a number of people, right? So like the head of social sciences, the head of theater arts and film, and then I had to go to the dean of admissions.
Right.
And the dean of admissions, there were specific core classes that you have to take, and every school has this, right? Like schools, it's like you have to take this many math courses, this many history courses, this many, language courses, et cetera. And oftentimes, especially at a liberal arts college, that's just a baseline, no matter what your like actual major is. There's like a baseline of actual courses. And because of the way the schedule was set up, I wasn't going to graduate on time if I had to take Spanish. And I will never forget this man, Dr. Rich Nassisi, because he didn't have to do this. He was like, I want you to graduate on time with your class. Let's see if we can find a way to make this work. And he looked at my high school transcripts, and I had gotten an A every quarter in Spanish. And he was like, your major is African-American studies with a concentration in the arts. I'm not going to keep you from graduating on time for Spanish.
Yes.
And he was like, you met the requirements in high school. I'm going to waive it.
Oh my goodness.
And that is when administrators use their power in a real way, when they understand that we're students and we're individuals and we have nuanced majors and goals. And so I'm talking also to the administrators on here. Like, there's just so often times where it feels like you're at the whim of the school and of this bigger body, and just know that like, we really, as students, we depend on you in so many real ways, and you can change the course of someone's life. Oh my gosh. That's so true. That's so true.
Actually, we have a professor that has a question for you, and I want to make sure I'm on my phone. Y'all don't make fun of me. Okay. Let me pull it. Okay. So a professor has a question for you. He said, as a Latinx educator invested in empowering our Black and Brown students on this campus, what is the role of comedy in debunking ongoing racist, sexist, nativist ideas rampant in our mainstream news and social media? And then a second part, do you have any tips for educators on how to better engage and empower our students?
Well, first of all, comedy doesn't have any role other than to make people laugh. So y'all got to stop giving comedians all these fucking roles. Because that's our role. Now, as an individual, I use my comedy for the purpose of educating, because that's what I feel is my role and my purpose. And in doing so, I have to remain informed. I have to remain conscious, and I have to remain responsible with how I'm framing jokes and how I am, speaking to different communities, and how I am confronting certain communities with their, unwillingness and their ignorance, et cetera. And so for me, particularly, the role of comedy is to engage people in a way that allows them to open up their consciousness and their perspective. And so it's a spoonful of sugar. It's also, when people are laughing, they're vulnerable. They're more, they're freer. When I was an interviewer and I was doing radio, people would always be like, yo, how you get these rappers to say the stuff that they say? I'm like, because I get them laughing. And I get them laughing. They done. It's over. So that's just how it goes. But it's like people want to laugh. Like humor is humor gets in you, laughing, when you start laughing from your gut, you're open. It's the complete opposite of crying hysterically. Laughing hysterically is just like, oh my God, whatever. So that's what it is for me. Now, in terms of empowering students, I think, I'm watching The Crown right now. I'm binging The Crown because it couldn't be further than from what life really is. And so I'm enjoying it as a certain level of escapism. And there's the episode that I'm on, they just had a man come and tell the queen, like, nobody really rocks with you because they don't know you. You don't talk to nobody. You're not down in the weeds. Like, you're not really understanding the levels that they're on. And I think for a lot of students, that's how it feels with professors. It's like there's this preservation of formality that oftentimes like can create distance. And then sometimes the informality creates too much togetherness, right? Like, don't sleep with your students. But ultimately, I'm just saying, but ultimately, I feel like there is a space of connectivity that happens where we have to bridge generations and bridge information and bridge contextualization. Because so often, like, you know, when you're a young person and you're in school, you're smart and you're getting all this information, you're gleaning all this information, you're in class, et cetera. But then you got to go out in the real world with it. And you still need that extra level of like, okay, but let's synthesize this like this. Right. And I feel like that connectivity doesn't get to happen enough with administrators. And as far as empowering, I think there's also, I just feel like in my school, there wasn't a lot of like cross-cultural connectivity, you know? There just wasn't. It was like, these are the Black classes, these are the Asian classes, these are the Latinx classes. And I just would have loved to have seen more effort or more opportunities for professors to be able to cross over. Like, everybody loves a crossover episode of a TV show. I would love a crossover episode of a class, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like a synergy of syllabus, a synergy of syllabi, you know, where it's like, and when we get to this unit, you're going to go over here. And I know that there's like the politics of schools and whatnot, but anything can be dealt with. But just that type of thing also helps to just demonstrate like the ways in which, you know, students can interact with each other, kind of, you know, interculturally and intersectionally outside of everything. I mean, I don't know if anyone has seen Judas and the Black Messiah, which is about the story of Fred Hampton and how him and the Black Panther Party in Chicago was infiltrated, and that's how he was taken down. But he had formed a rainbow coalition where he went and he brought together like these other groups that were looking to basically beat the system. So like working class white folks and the Latinx community, like they had a gang, and he went to everybody and was like, yo, imagine if we all teamed up. We all want the same thing for our people. Imagine if we teamed up.
Right. So exactly. That culture, creating that culture. So kind of going off of what you were just referring to a little bit, can you recall your first experience with racism? I'm thinking about the movie we were just. So let's talk about that for a minute. Your first experience with racism?
When I was 8, when I moved to Orlando just in general was like, hello, racism. Like, I always say that people are always like, Orlando isn't racist, it's Disney. And I'm like, no. It's not like Mississippi racist. It's not like, fuck you, nigger, get out of here. But it's like, you know, it's just, but it's definitely like, fuck you, nigger, get out of here. Like, it's definitely, it's racist. It's like a with rhinestones. So, I would say my first experience I can like implicitly tell you is my mother relayed this to me. So this was by way of, so when I got to Orlando, I had tested gifted in LA. I was born in Los Angeles. I was in gifted program, et cetera. And then when I moved to Orlando for 3rd grade, my mom was like, okay, I'd like to get her tested for the gifted program here. And my teacher, was like, she's not gifted. And my mom was like, this is the first week of school. How, like, what are you talking? And my mom was like, well, I can tell you what, if she was gifted in California, she's gifted in Florida. Okay.
Right.
And the teacher really like tried to prevent me from being tested for gifted, and went so far as to like, my mom was like, well, I'll just go talk to the principal. And she took like this back, like a tunnel to get to the principal's office before my mom could get there to like try and shut it down. And she also in 3rd grade told me that, well, she had asked, what do we want to be? And I said, I want to be the first Black female president of the United States of America. And she told my mother that Amanda is overconfident and needs to pursue more realistic goals. But so those were like, you know, kind of, they were obviously racist, but they weren't like, But the first one that I remember as like a happening to me in my face was when I was a dancer. When I was 8, my first job ever was dancing in front of the castle at Disney World, the Sparkling Christmas Spectacular. And they auditioned 1,500 kids and they chose 10. And I remember this kid, Patrick, this little Aryan race Patrick. He had blonde hair and blue eyes. And he was like, they only picked you because you're Black. And I was like, I mean, that's fine. Like, I'm still here. We're getting paid the same.
Right.
But that was the first time that I was like, and then they treated me different. Like we had Secret Santa and they gave me like a broken gift. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. My Secret Santa was a kid named Jeremy. I can see him clear as day right now. He had a freckle,
Jeremy?
right? Yeah. Jeremy had a mole right here and he had Prince Charles hair at like 8. And he gave me a broken jewelry box and like, the tubes of candy that have like a little character on the top.
Yeah.
It was half eaten. With the character. And I remember crying and my mom was like, I can't stand these people.
Oh,
fine.
That's and it's sad that you remember so early, right? Like,
I know. I mean, I have a picture of that group and in the picture, everyone's smiling and then someone's arm is like in my way and I'm like this.
Oh my gosh.
And my therapist was like, and that is when you became how you are now. She was like, this picture is when it happened.
Explains it all. Oh my goodness. So here's another question. Brenda Silva asks, what honest advice can you give to women of color in this political climate? So saying that you can't be president, huh?
Exactly. Take up space.
There you go.
That's my advice. Take up space. I think a lot of us, we are really undoing the brainwashing of centuries. And so it's really going to be like those of us going for the gusto that make room for those of us who may not be as outspoken, but still deserve to be heard. Right. So we have to very ardently take up space and make space for others when we get in that space. Like when someone asked me the other day, like, what do I want to see the next Black woman, like what political position would I want to see the next Black woman in? And I know they thought I was going to say president. And I'm like, I want us to take over the Senate. There's no Black women in the Senate right now. None. Kamala was one. And that was a big deal. So we need to take up space and we need to support those of us who are taking up space. And if I'm keeping it 100, we be hating on each other. We be hating on each other. We be hating on each other for all kinds of reasons.
Yes.
Her man too fine. She too light skinned. She too dark skinned. Her hair too curly. She too skinny. She too big. We come up with, I don't like her attitude. She thinks she cute. We come up with 1,000,001 reasons as Black women to not support other Black women. And we have got to stop.
Yes. We talked about that today with our hair conversation.
Oh, we good. Oh, with the hair. Geez, with the hair. And then they came up with the 4C and the 2B and I'm like, now y'all just starting problems.
Yes. Everybody may not know what that is, but that's what bad.
So what is it? IYK? If you know, you know.
I know. Okay, so I'm going to ask you another question and then we'll start opening it up because I see our chats just going. People are so excited that you're here and I know they want to talk to you more. So we have a few more. So if there's time in between, I'll throw some more in there. But recently we, from one of your stand-up performances, so when you're doing stand-up, you were talking about people knowing the Negro National Anthem. Right. And so last week we had a performer, Jarrett Johnson. His rendition of the Negro National Anthem is actually up for a Grammy.
Oh, wow.
This year. Yeah. So we're he performed for us last week. But so our question is like for you, why do you think young folks don't know about it? Because we did a poll and it was like 30% of the audience didn't even know or never heard the song before that day. So why do you think that is? Why are we not hearing that or knowing of that song?
I mean, if I just pull something out of my ass, my thought is this. Young people don't have to go to gatherings the way they once had to. Like I just remember in my day, I would have to go to certain elders type gatherings that the Negro National Anthem was sang at. And it was a certain level of austerity that was expected in these spaces. And I just feel like we don't really do that in the same way anymore. I make a point of singing the Negro National Anthem anywhere I do something. So if it's my Funny and Black live in the crib, my special, I make a point. But I also think that, you know, we have to remember, so like my generation, I was born in the 80s, and we're coming off the heels of the civil rights movement and the Black Power movement, right? So
right.
And so there was a resurgence of Black pride, right? I don't even know if I want to say there was a surge of Black pride, because I can't say that we actually got to publicly really exist in that space up until that point. And so I was taught by teachers of that era who came up of that era. So like my first grade teacher had us singing the Negro National Anthem.
Oh my goodness.
Miss Channel. And she was like, yeah, because I didn't want y'all thinking that this land is your land is actually true. She's like, they don't treat you like it's your land. So we got to sing this other thing too. But I feel like, so in moving forward, the younger generation, like, they're not being taught by the same, but they're not being taught by teachers who came out of that time. Like my generation, you know, we're hip hop. So, you know, they're getting access to something different. But I think it's still very important that we continue to center the Negro National Anthem and continue to identify difference. And I just think that in this effort to like topple racism, there's a lot of conversation amongst young people that says like, we're all the same, and we're not. And you can identify the differences and the individuality of us while still upholding that everybody deserves the same rights.
Right.
You know, imagine like indigenous people of the world have traditions that are unique to their tribes, you know, that are unique to their peoples. And that doesn't make them any less indigenous people. Like, you know, and I think that
it's so simple.
There's just this erasure around Black culture in America that tries to homogenize it and tries to make it just American. And it is not. There are different types of Americans. There are Indigenous Americans, there are Latinx Americans, and even within that, there's subsets because, you know, your quinceañera for a Mexican young woman is probably not going to be the same as for a Nicaraguan young woman. You know what I'm saying? Like, we should be able to understand that. But because we fail to acknowledge Black American as an ethnicity, we like to only look at it as a race. But it is actually, in my opinion, it's an ethnicity. It's a very specific cultural identifier. We lose things like the Negro National Anthem. Yeah,
that makes sense.
These are the things I be thinking about. I be just thinking about these things.
And that's why we're asking.
I'm an expert on this. Like, I mean, I went to school and I do think about these things on like in a real way, but just know that I just be philosophizing.
I like it. Okay, so this one will be the last question for me, and then we'll see if anyone has questions from the audience. And if not, I have plenty more. So we'll keep talking.
I like
that. So what last bit of advice do you want to give our students tonight?
Damn, I gave y'all a lot of advice.
I kind of agree with that too. Is there anything else? If not, we could pick another question. I got a lot.
Listen to your elders.
Oh, that's good though. See, we needed to hear that.
Now, they may not always be right, but it's still worth a listen. And listen, very rare is anybody 100% anything. So they might, you know, even a broken clock is right twice a day. So, you know, you can know you and be working on you at the same time as listening to others who have experienced more life than you and be able to filter from that what works for you.
Yeah.
And so often in our radical youth, we're like, I don't need you. You don't know me. You can't tell me nothing. I want to hear about it. I'm going to figure this out myself because I'm going to prove to everybody that I'm smart enough. And then you learn over time that you didn't prove nothing to nobody. And so, you know, and also let me just say too, there are so many adults who respect your youth and respect your mind. And you got to find those folks, you know, like I was so fortunate to throughout my youth and my young adult years, and then my like young grown-up years, because young grown-up years is like 20 to 26. Yeah. You ain't really, and even 27 to 31, you still think you're doing something and you're still, but, and it's not to say that you have to have some formal mentorship, but I just always had grown people around me that respected my mind enough to hear me out and be able to give me advice and guidance based on me, not based on what they would have done. Because they know that's not helpful to anybody. Right. So just, you know, seek out those people. I mean, I have professors who are now my friends. And, you know, like my first grade teacher, Miss Channel, she hates that I call her Miss Channel. And I'm like, I'm not going to call you your first name. But, you know, it's, and the last thing I'll say too, is that you need to understand that you have a responsibility because you are privileged, because you got a higher education. Yeah. You know, I see people talking a lot lately about like college is nothing and education means nothing. And I'm like, you're an idiot because well, if it was nothing, they wouldn't have made it illegal for us to read. They wouldn't have tried to kill us. They wouldn't have tried. They would have killed us for reading, et cetera, et cetera. You crazy? If it was nothing, they wouldn't have thrown away the sea scrolls. Like, listen, baby, like education is the one thing they can't take from you. They can take your house, your name, your dog, your kids. They could take literally your identity. They cannot take from you what you know. Absolutely. So just, you know, understand that is not a burden. It's an honor. Absolutely.
I love it. So we have Christian Rodriguez asked, he said, I love the art on your wall. What is your favorite piece and why? So behind you, one of those, I think.
Well, I did all of these.
Yeah. Done. Done. He said, love. Wow.
All of them have their own special places in my heart. Like, this was a commissioned piece that I did. Well, there's a funny story around this that I never tell, but I'll tell the story. So this guy in Spain, this brother who was like in the military in Spain had commissioned me to do a piece. So I did the piece and I mailed it to him. And then he asked me to do another piece. And so this is the sketch for that other piece. And when I sent it to him, he was like, you know, I'd love for you to come to Spain and you can stay in my home and paint the piece. And I was like, I must look like a fool. I look like a fool because you think I'm going to come across the mid-Atlantic to your house to paint? No, baby. And so then he was like, I don't like it. I think it's ugly. This is the original sketch and I really like it. And one day I will paint it. This one is special to me because I had done this whole series of chalk pastels and it actually extends all the way to there. And this Post-it note, so this says, me, the female Raja, clad in emerald and rubies. And that was like a rap. That was a line from one of my raps that I was writing. I was rapping at the time. And this is a Post-it note from one of my college roommates, Maite. And this was put on this when we were in college. This Post-it note has not left this since 2002.
It still has sticky.
It still has sticky. And Maite is from Queens, New York. And it says, you ain't no fucking Raja. And so like the Cancer in me is just like hyper sentimental. And I just love that it's still there. And this is the first painting I did that was an original piece. So when I started painting, I did 2 like pieces that were a copy of like a greeting card that I'd seen. And this is the first one that was like really realized from my mind. And I did this in 97. So I was 15 when I did this one. And then this over here is like my ode to hip hop style.
Yes.
So they all have like, you know, and then like these ones up here, like this is a whole series that I did of, we're dedicated to the hip hop babies, because there's like a whole generation of us that just grew up in a world where hip hop was everywhere and it shaped us.
Brown sugar. Do you love brown sugar? I
do love brown sugar. I watched it the other day and I was like, it still holds up.
I know. It just makes you reminisce. Okay, wait, let me stay. Okay. So Amber Sosa says, what's the best lesson you have learned in life?
I mean, there's so many, like don't date drug dealers.
One.
You know, like, I think for your generation, the internet is forever.
Yes.
The internet is forever.
All of it.
So just, you know, it's infinitus. So watch what you say, who you say it to, you know, because one of the first lessons I learned, I mean, that question is so big because I mean, I'm a student. So I've lived a life of learning lessons. But one of the first lessons my mother taught me was that your reputation precedes you. It is very often louder than you. And so and when I say that, I need to be clear that like you get to measure what matters to you in terms of reputation, right? Like some people will try and make reputation around like your sexuality and all this shit that don't matter. For me, for me, reputation is my character, my work ethic, and my values.
Yeah.
And so a lot of folks think like, you know, they just on these internets, just doing everything, just doing whatever, and not understanding that the way in which you're interacting with that space can oftentimes skew the reputation that you want to uphold for yourself and present for yourself. And so the consciousness that you need to have. And I can absolutely tell you, I have made that error because I've gotten way too comfortable on the internet before and was just talking. And it wasn't that I was saying something that I didn't mean. It was that I was speaking in a way that was way too informal because all these people are watching and they don't know me like that. So perspective is reality. So to them, their perspective of what I'm saying is the truth. And I'm not getting an opportunity to even clarify it for them because there's not that back and forth exchange. So it's just, you know, be understanding of the new world that you're in. And that, you know, boundaries are important. Boundaries is another lesson I've had to learn. That's a later in life lesson I learned. That you can say, I don't like that. And then not have to deal with it anymore.
Yeah.
And you can also say, I don't like that, but I know I got to deal with it for a certain amount of time. And so I'm going to deal with it out here versus in here, you know? And I think a lot of us don't really feel like we have permission to do that.
Yes. Yes. I think we still have to tell ourselves that sometimes, even in my current state. Okay, so we have a special guest. We're excited. We get to have a live question. So I'm sure, she's really excited to be able to talk to you and meet you personally. So Olivia Beltran, are you here?
Yes, I'm here. Sorry, I got in late. I had a hard time logging in.
All good.
Hi.
We're happy you're here. Do you want to go ahead and ask Amanda your question?
Yes, I do. Hi, Amanda. I said, if you could make any statement stick in a young girl's mind about confidence and determination, what would it be?
Oh, Lord. All right. You're enough.
Mm,
I like that.
hashtag.
You're enough.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that you can't gain insight from other people.
Record a little.
That doesn't mean, oh, Christian, you got to put an E after that R. It doesn't mean that you can't gain insight from other people. It doesn't mean that you can't learn. It doesn't mean that you don't grow and evolve. It doesn't mean that you don't realize that ways in which you're behaving with more information, you're like, oh, maybe I should change that. Like, that's not, all of those things can still exist while you being enough. And oftentimes we think that we have to be someone else, or that we are missing the pieces or the capability to be the person that we want to be. And it really is in you.
I like that. I'm glad I got to be a part of this. Like, I was all nervous.
No, you weren't, because I see you put a whole fit together. You got the hair did, you got the outfit. Olivia was like, I'm coming on the TV today. I'm coming on the Chapman. Let's talk.
It was just crazy. I burned my meatloaf, and then I had to do my email a lot. I had a date tonight, but I had the date prior, and he was supposed to come over, and then I'm sitting there trying to cook it, and then they emailed me like, bam, you're going to be on tonight. And I was like, oh shit. But it burned, but I'm glad I got on. The meatloaf is okay. I'm glad I got
good. I don't want you to go to sleep hungry. All right, good. No. Thank you, Olivia, and I hope the date went well.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Oh, that's great. Okay, we have questions everywhere. I don't know where to go next, Emily. Oh my gosh. Okay, so we have Q&A going, and then we have only a few more minutes. So let me go back to this question. I love that you're enough. I've even thought about getting that as a tattoo before. Because sometimes,
I have Post-its all over my house that basically lead back to that sentiment.
Absolutely. So maybe this would add to it, but it looks like, I hope I do not mispronounce too much, but Akila Caldwell asked, in what ways do you empower women of color?
I mean, in my daily existence, that's part of it. I also center our stories, and I am very vocal about our protection and the value and merits of our perspective being included in every space. I empower women of color also, I believe, by living in purpose and intention and in like values and ethics as a woman of color. And I really just feel like I do my best to impart the importance of sisterhood amongst every woman I come across. And I myself demonstrate that with my staff, with my interns, with my peers, my colleagues, etc. I am a big believer in teamwork makes the dream work.
Yes.
And I've been in scenarios where, other women of color have not felt that way and have looked at it more like there's only room for, one of us, etc. And I have made it like my life's work to really be the opposite of that in every space that I inhabit.
That's beautiful. Thank you for that. That actually helps encompass what we're celebrating on campus. It's the year of the Black woman. So we are empowering women during Black History Month throughout. And so that fits right in there. Thank you for that. And then we have someone actually that asked, what advice can you give us Black men? So Lawrence Duru, if I pronounce that correctly, said, what advice can you give us Black men?
Your feelings are your friends.
Yeah.
I feel like that is like aside from, this entire oppressive institution that America is, the other thing holding Black men back is patriarchy's like passed down method, or basically patriarchy's paradigm that a man with feelings is weak, that a man with feelings is, and I know that may sound hackneyed, but that's still like a real thing. And I mean, I think there's so much work to be done in just like letting men know that they can be vulnerable and still strong and still regarded. I mean, it's for women too, but I think that society bumps up against men, particularly cisgendered heterosexual men, being vulnerable and emotional more than any other group, right? It's like this idea that if you do that, then you're not really valuable, that you're, you can't be depended on, or you're not reliable. The other advice I would give is listen to women. I mean,
Period.
again, like,
period.
To be honest, the world has not made a habit of teaching men how to be good men. Like, that's not, society isn't set up to teach men how to be good men. Society is literally set up to teach men how to be manipulative, like how to be capitalists, how to be toxic, and how to be brute forces. It's men who, in some shape, way, or form, reach these moments of enlightenment that realize, like, hold up, this is not really good, that end up finding a deeper connectivity to themselves and finding the reality that, like, all of these things are actually not helpful. They're harmful. And I just remember my homeboy, when he was 36, called me and was like, yo, did you know niggas ain't shit? Yes, I did. And he was like, I had no idea that we ain't shit. And he was like, I gotta get busy. And he started doing a lot of self-work. And what he meant by, niggas ain't shit, was that he was just like, I have been taught my whole life that being selfish was like a good thing, that putting money first was what made me a man, that being the strongest person in the room is going to actually be the thing that is my legacy. And he was like, and I just realized how all of those things were making me a harmful person, a harmful man to women. And he was like, and it wasn't until I started actually listening to my homegirls and to my mom that I started realizing, like, that I need to unlearn these ways, and it will free me to be so much happier. And that's true.
Yeah.
And I will also add that Black women in particular have made like a very strong stride toward wellness and self-care in a way that I want to see our brothers do. And so, they're a wellspring for information on going down that road. And we're out here. Listening.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're almost out of time, but there are two more questions that I think would be very valuable for you to answer. So we'll do one that Lourdes Nylon asked, and she said, what legacy would you like to leave behind?
I would like to leave behind a legacy of authenticity and art. Art that inspires folks to reach inside themselves, to move beyond boundaries that were created outside of themselves. And like, in every type of art that I create, I always have two ways I approach it. It's like, on one end, I want it to serve me artistically. And on the other end, I want it to serve the people socially. I want it to, and that can be either by informing or inspiring or empowering or all the above. And if it doesn't do that, then I'm just like, well, I can't, like, I lose interest in it.
It's not worth it. Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's the legacy I want to leave behind. I want to leave behind that, like, Amanda was a real one and her art mattered.
Yeah. Beautiful. Okay. So this is the last question, but it's a fun one. Darius Riggins said, since you are a hip hop OG, what is the GOAT MC for you? Who is your GOAT MC?
I mean, my GOAT is Andre Benjamin. Otherwise,
Yes.
3,000. Otherwise,
3,000.
3 stacks of Outkast. That is my goal. Nobody can consistently, like, and I know people will be like, Jay-Z. I'm like, listen. But see, Dre had an art, like he had a abstractness to what he was doing that made his rhymes go beyond just raps, like, don't get me wrong, like Jay's nice, Mos Def, Nas, Lauryn Hill, Biggie, Pac, like, J. Cole on a good day, like, folks got raps, but Andre, he's painting masterpieces. He's doing things with cadence that other MCs aren't doing. He's giving you metaphors. He's also painting pictures. And that's the other thing too. A lot of MCs only have one or the other. They either got great metaphors or they can tell a story. But like I would say Nas is a far better storyteller than a metaphor. Like Tupac, way better storyteller than I'm going to say a metaphorizer. Whereas like Biggie had both. Yeah. Biggie had both. Whereas Hove is not a storyteller in my opinion, but he's going to give you metaphors and puns for days. So, Andre is all the above. And then he's also from the South. And so there's something you have to give credit to in the fact that at a time when hip hop was not even hip hop in the South wasn't even being respected, they came out the South and like, along with UGK, put the stamp down, like, you better, the South got something to say. Yeah. Yeah. I remember that. Don't make me spit a Outkast verse up here. People are putting, I love UGK. Oh my goodness. Yeah. We love it. Thank you so much. It's already 8:00. I want to just keep hanging out and listen. I feel like there was one more, right? Did you ask both? There are questions everywhere. Emily, let me know what to do. We have so many questions. I got one more for you. So make it good. Okay. All right. So let's see. Emily or Afaf, do you see any that we could do real quick? Let me look in the Q&A. I got some of those done. Oh, let's do this one from Adriana Rodriguez. Being a comedian and bringing so much joy to others, how do you bring joy to yourself in your life? Ooh, that is a ooh. Yeah. I mean, I'm a pretty just genuinely kind of like happy person. I will say that I really do get joy from making other people laugh, like, and from creating, like that is not like an abstract thing. Like I genuinely do get joy from that. I love going to the beach and being in nature. I have good friends. Like I talk to my friends. Yeah, like I have good friends. Like my friends, like we can't even get on the phone without like we got to block out time because we know it's going to be, there's no like, hey girl, just like, there's none of that. It's an hour, Yeah. I love TV, y'all. I love television. I get actual joy. There's a show called The Expanse. Okay. And my dude had binged it so that he could catch up so that we could watch the final season. The final season was so good. I started crying. I started crying in one of the episodes of just sheer joy at how good it was. When I saw TV and film does that to me. When I was sitting in the theater to see the last Harry Potter movie, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2, I literally turned to my friend Emily and was like, she's like, are you okay? I was like, I'm so excited. Like it really, I just love it. And so like as an art form, and I'll tell you, I got really, and like music does that to me too, like concerts and like being in that space of like sharing in art, like really does something to me. And last year, last year I went through a real depression around a number of things. But one of the things was around that I just felt like the art that I was seeing was so mediocre. And folks were lauding it as classic. And it was just, it felt like the universe was gaslighting me. And it was like, well, if this is what people want, then what you want to do is not going to happen. And it really made me like want to quit. And I was just like, I don't want to work no more. I'm going to figure something else out. I'm tired of this showbiz shit. I don't like this. I was really on that. Like I've said that publicly in many ways. And I went through an experience that I came out the other side of. And when I came out the other side of it, I had this like, I don't know, kind of like a renewed love for what I can bring to this space, like a renewed vision. Because there was a certain point that I felt that way with music and I never got back to it. Like I just stopped because I was like, this ain't for me. And I thought that's what was happening with TV and film. And it actually isn't. Like I'm back and I have a renewed excitement and ambition around creating work that speaks, to me and to the people. And you need this, and you need stamina to do that. And if you don't have that stamina, it can feel like this is pointless and this is futile. And so I feel like I got that stamina back to where I'm like, all right, let's do this.
Let's go. Another round, huh?
Once more into the breach.
Yes. Okay. So can I get an Andre 3000 verse now? Can we?
Let me see if I remember this one. Okay, let's see. Me and everything around me is unstable like Chernobyl, ready to go at any moment, jumping like a pogo stick, like never lived up to my expectations. So I accept the patience, expect the worst, so now I'm pacing back and forth inside and melting like water on wicked witches. A monster truck then came and ran over my picket fences. I had the best of life in my trenches. I had the best of life in my clenches, but monkey wrenches was thrown like chairs king sit on. My prayers seemed too long. I fall asleep before the ending. Didn't even get to say amen. I hope they realize I'd be on bended knee. Sometimes I think I'm crazy, then I say forget it. Or maybe it's the devil infiltrating and like Riddick Bowe. I've been fighting the system fetus days. I count from 1 to 20 when I'm through, repeat the phrase. It's just a phase. It's going to pass, but that gets old too. I'm weakening like a deacon doing dirt. What am I supposed to?
Yeah.
You understand how difficult that is? Like,
yes.
He's a beast. A beast. I have to close my eyes like because
yeah.
You put me on the spot.
I get it. Respect. We have loved this so much.
Fun.
Thank you.
Thank y'all so much. I hope I met the laugh quotient for the evening. I know there were high hopes for jokes. So
I think we're good. We saw lots of good comments tonight and everybody's excited. We're just so honored. People had such a good time tonight. Just thank you for sharing your joy and your wisdom and your kind words. And
I think the last time I was at Chapman, I think in 2014. I believe. I came to Chapman and there was a conference, like a women's conference, I believe. And I did a one-woman show I have called Side Eye Seminar, Identifying and Defying Everyday Forms of Sexism. And the one thing I remember about Chapman was like walking through y'all's campus and I was like, is this a resort?
At Chapman.
Beautiful. Wait, where am I? Wait. No, I'm at, where am I tonight?
I was like, I don't know where Chapman is, but maybe I need to go. Okay.
Let me tell you the confusing part of these Zooms.
Yeah.
You don't even know where you are.
I know.
You don't even know where you are. Let me tell you, my agent right now, Mark Gordon, is on his computer like, no! That's what he's doing right now.
We're like, and leave and close. Thank you.
I know I know he is freaking out, but I know where I'm at. I'm at Cal State. Okay.
Yes. You're at Cal State.
Yes. I'm at Cal State. I'm at Cal State. I'm back, guys. I'm back.
It's okay. It's okay.
You know
we'll
what?
have to bring you to campus. It'll be just, there's a puppy.
All is good now. There's a puppy.
Yeah, when you bring puppies
so
to the mix,
good.
we're fine.
He was so good. He's been here the whole time.
Mine were horrible, and they had to go away with Daddy.
I saw you mute, and I was like, "Oh, the dog is acting up."
When I start doing the head like this, you know.
That's the so funny thing about Zooms. When you see moms go like this, it's like you're telling a child to get out there.
Mm-hmm. Or I hide my mouth, and I'm like, Hamilton, shut up, get over there.
Get over there. Someone asked what breed. Jordy is a rescue. He is a Terrier Chihuahua mix. He has one eye. You can't tell him that. And he got a haircut today. So he has a little mohawk and he is just living his best life. So, but thank you all so much for having me, and just stay strong. Stay strong. Like this is a real wild time. And as a student, I can't even imagine the level of frustration that you feel like having your college years in this way. But just know that you guys are a part of a special experience, and it's all, there's a saying that says miracles are just a change in perspective. So just know that you all will always be able to say, well, I did this during a pandemic. And so you can hold that over everyone's head and let that be right. Let that be my last gift to you. I did this in a pandemic,
Yes. So. Thank you. And we admire you for going through and coming out and continuing to do things, because we appreciate your inspiration and all that you're doing for the Black community, for women, and all those around us. So thank you so much. Thank you for your gifts and your knowledge. And we here at CSU Bakersfield appreciate you so much and would love to see you again sometime. And I'm sure Olivia is very honored to be she was able to speak to you and hang out for a minute.
Man,
so thank
Olivia
you for that.
Looked like I had a night. She was like, I had a date. She's like, this look ain't just for you. This look doubled for 2 situations. I had a look for the date, and she planned that. She was like, I'm gonna date the same night just in case, so that I already got my look together. I hear you, Olivia. That's practical. I like that. Well, good night, y'all. Appreciate you. Make sure to follow me on Instagram, Amanda Seals, and look out. I got some new content coming for folks, so support it when you see it.
Yes. And book again. What's the date for your book? April 15th.
All those comes out on paperback on April 13th.
13th. All right.
All right. Good night, y'all. Be safe.
Thank you. Good night.